Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Dynasty After Party. I am your fill-in host this morning, Joshua Hudson. With me is the mainstay here on the After Party, Mr. Joel Wirth. And today we're going to be continuing our company-wide A Look Inside team preview series, but from a Dynasty angle. This week's teams, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New Orleans Saints, and the Indianapolis Colts. So many good young players for Dynasty on these three teams. Woo, it's going to be a fun one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to the 50th episode of the Dynasty After Party. Joel, congratulations on 50 episodes, buddy.
Thanks for counting. I had no idea.
I count for reasons exactly like this.
That's awesome. I had no idea. Go ahead. No, yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And yeah, I had absolutely no idea we were that close to that number. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a fun one, man. Been a fun one. But as mentioned in the intro, I'm Joshua Hudson, the fill-in host for Mr. Michael Sicoli. His day job got him on assignment this morning on a Sunday, unfortunately. So, it happens. But I'm here to help steer this ship while Joel gives you all the Dynasty info you need to know on the Las Vegas Raiders, the New Orleans Saints, and the Indianapolis Colts. But before we get into all that, we've got a fun little affiliate that we're working with. That would be the fine folks over at Dynasty Nerds. So head over to dynastynerds.com, use promo code CLUBFANTASY, and save yourself 15% off of your purchase. Dynasty Nerds is one of the most trusted sources for both Dynasty advice and Dynasty tools. Their Nerd Score helps identify rookies with high ceilings and the longevity to keep you in contention for years. If what you're looking for is film on the upcoming rookie class, then look no further than their all-22 film room. They even have a Dynasty trade calculator that can help identify values throughout the season and better understand how to value players across the ever-changing landscape. And the best part is you can import your leagues to see specifically how those players fit within your league scoring settings. So once again, head over to dynastynerds.com and see for yourself. At checkout, enter code CLUBFANTASY, save 15%, and have yourself a wild time with all of these crazy tools. Again, dynastynerds.com, use promo code CLUBFANTASY, save yourself 15%. Love Dynasty Nerds. A lot of great people over there. So much fun.
We're doing the Scott Fish Live draft in Cleveland next Saturday. Rich Dotson's putting that together. So
nice.
Also runs Dynasty Nerds. So yeah, looking forward to that. Should be a really good time.
Rich is good people. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's get into the headlines. The news of the week. Well, the biggest thing that came out, Rhamondre Stevenson, 4-year, $36 million extension, $17 million guaranteed. Joel, how are we feeling about this? Especially from a Dynasty perspective where, nobody even wants to draft running backs. And now that we're saying maybe we should because this guy's going to be here for the next few years.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty disappointing season last year. A lot of people were kind of bullish on him, but a little bit of an injury, real disappointment. But yeah, I think people were thinking that this would be his last year in New England after his contract was coming up. So, I think this really solidifies him for at least the next couple of years beyond 24 in New England. So yeah, I think this is a really good thing for his dynasty value, and I'm kind of expecting a bounce back. I think we might see the year that, the kind of post-hype season that people were expecting last year. So I'm getting kind of bullish on Stevenson as a kind of a late running back you can take. We're talking before the show about I got him pretty late in one of our startup drafts on the site, and so yeah, I think he's pretty good value right now. So I think his ADP in startups is going to pretty drastically start moving up soon.
We're drafting a 12 team and he went at, what were we saying, 10-8 to you in that one?
Yep.
I almost took him around earlier, and quite honestly, I probably should have now that the contract is there. But hey, it's what it is. You live and you learn. So, but no, I definitely I love this. I love this fit. Bringing in Alex Van Pelt. Say what you want about him as a play caller. Maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. But you're going to have a lot of seeds of that Cleveland offense, and it's done pretty well for Nick Chubb. I'm just saying. So if Rhamondre gets sort of that Nick Chubb style role. With clear passing upside that maybe Nick Chubb didn't present, you could be looking at very easily a top 12 season if he remains healthy. So definitely a solid outlook for 2024 and definitely for beyond if Alex Van Pelt actually is able to grow with the team. And then another note you put in here, which honestly this is the first I'm hearing of this. George Kittle lost 30 pounds after core surgery. For a guy who plays pretty physical, I feel like this might be a little worrisome. Joel, where are you sitting on this?
Yeah, I'm pretty concerned about this. He said he couldn't lift. He had he tore an abdominal or groin muscle, one of the two, during the season. Played through it to the Super Bowl. She basically couldn't lift during the season and then had to have surgery right after and hasn't been able to lift since then. So, I've had plenty of abdominal surgeries in my time, and it's tough, man. You lose a lot of weight. You can't eat for several days afterwards, and it's tough to put good weight back on, right? You can go to McDonald's, eat a bunch of cheeseburgers, and put bad weight on. That's easy, but putting good weight on is tough. And for someone who, like you said, is very reliant, his run blocking is he's like Gronk. The run blocking is what gets him on the field, and the receiving ability is great relative to other tight ends. But he's on the field because he's an excellent run blocker and good receiver. So I'm a little worried about it. Is this going to affect his playing time? If he has to use his off season, the rest of the off season, which there's not a lot of, right? We're 11 weeks away from the start of the season. If he's got to get his strength back up, it can affect his endurance. Is he going to be able to play his regular snap share? So yeah, I'm very concerned about this for him.
Yeah, definitely don't love it. I think anytime you have players that are coming off of these fairly serious injuries, it really affects their, the training for getting ready for the season because you're focusing too much on getting healthy versus, just getting ready for the season and that level of training that goes into that. So what I wanted to bring up, because right now, and obviously roster cuts will, shrink this list some. They have 7 tight ends on their roster, including George Kittle. They tried to sign Brock Wright from Detroit. He was a restricted free agent. Detroit ended up matching that. So they went through and they settled for the ageless wonder Logan Thomas, who's had one good season in his life, former quarterback, late breakout at tight end, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. 2 years ago, they drafted Cameron Latu out of Alabama. Injured all last year, so he's starting from scratch. Basically a rookie this year. They brought in Eric Saubert from the Texans, and then a couple undrafted guys and a Braden Willis, a 2023 7th-round pick. Let's throw out this weird hypothetical that this doesn't go George Kittle's way. Do we want a tight end in this offense, or does everything just get funneled towards Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, and Deebo Samuel?
I think, if anything, it would lead to more snaps for Kyle Juszczyk. I don't think any of those guys is a legitimate thing that Kyle Shanahan wants to put on the field. I don't trust Logan Thomas to stay healthy ever, so I'm just writing him off. Yeah, I think maybe this is Pearsall's opportunity to get on the field and just.
Do you think they would run more 3 wide receiver sets though?
I can see it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I don't are you excited about any of those other guys that you named?
I mean, no, but Latu was at least a 3rd-round pick, so there's some draft value there. He was a day 2 guy, but maybe they want to see what they got. Maybe It was just another wasted third round pick because it's seemingly what the 49ers do every year.
I think that Shanahan would trust Juszczyk with that role if it came to it, and then
Makes sense.
Kind of use him as an H-back and kind of a swing out back. So, yeah, I think that may be a path to a bit of more fantasy viability for him. Not that he's someone I'd be excited about starting, but yeah, I think I think the reception opportunity would be split between Juszczyk and Pearsall.
Let's join a fantasy league where it's a 3 times fullback tight or premium. Then we want some Kyle Juszczyk. All right, let's get into the heart of what this show is all about. Gators, Scampers, we see in the chat. Appreciate y'all joining us on this Sunday morning. But let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. Man, little turnover here. Josh McDaniels fired last year, thank God, because he was terrible. The GM cleaned house. Everybody went with you. Tom Telesco brought over from the Chargers, first season here in Las Vegas, spent the last 11 seasons over there in San Diego and Los Angeles. Antonio Pierce, this is his first full season as the head coach. He was the interim who took over for Josh McDaniels. And then, of course, a brand new play caller, Luke Getsy. This is his first season here in Las Vegas. Spent the last 2 seasons with Chicago and Justin Fields. The first question I want to get out of the way before we even get into these players is the real Luke Getsy. Are we about to see the real Luke Getsy? Or did we already see the real Luke Getsy and there's trouble in paradise here in Las Vegas?
I'm not optimistic.
I know it's a tough question, Joel. I know it's a tough question. But he comes from Packerland and you're a Packer guy, so I got to bring it up.
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's an important question, but I'm not optimistic. He was like, I feel like he was only in Green Bay as long as he was because he was tight with Aaron Rodgers, and that guy held a massive kind of gravitational field with people he liked. Did not do well in Chicago. I'll put that as optimistically as I can. Now, was that? I think we're going to answer questions about Getsy and Justin Fields this year. Is, which one was kind of holding them back, or was it both? Fields obviously missed some time last year as well. So I'm not optimistic, but you could certainly say that maybe with a different cast of characters, he's reuniting with Davante Adams. So he was obviously there. They knew how to use Adams well, which everyone does. Feed him the ball. He's really good. So there's that. But, yeah, I'm not super optimistic about him being the play caller.
Fair enough. I just wanted to get some opinions. There's already been reports that apparently his offense is way too damn hard to understand. So this should be a lot of fun. Just saying. All right, let's talk about the relevant or somewhat relevant dynasty players here on the Raiders. We'll start with the quarterbacks. We got Gardner Minshew, 28, newly signed 2-year, $25 million deal. Aiden O'Connell, second season. He came in as an older rookie, so he's 25 going into his second season. Then we have the running backs. This is a weird room, honestly. You've got Zamir White, who they drafted a few years back. He's heading into his third season, presumably as the lead bell cow here as they let Josh Jacobs go. They brought in Alexander Madison from Minnesota on a 1-year deal. They drafted Dylan Laub out of New Hampshire. Rookie this year. They still have holdover Brandon Bolden, who mainly is a special teams guy in a pass-catching role. Then, of course, you go into the wide receiver room. We got another ageless wonder, Davante Adams, 32. He signed a 5-year deal when he came over to the Raiders. What is it? $7.8 million dead cap for the next 3 seasons. We have Jacoby Myers, who came over last year. Josh McDaniels had a pretty solid season. Finished as a wide receiver 24. He's 28, signed through 2025. A couple other young pass catchers, Trey Tucker, I believe, the slot receiver. You got Brock Bowers, of course, who they drafted this year at 13 overall, and then Michael Mayer, the second-round tight end from a year ago. Both these guys, 22, 23 years old, respectively. So some promising pass catchers here, clearly. Problem, of course, is who's going to get them the football. No need to really dive in too much on the quarterbacks because I think we're all in agreement. They suck. No real promise there. So let's talk about the future overall tight end one, because that's what we do. We hype up unicorns in this space. Brock Bowers. Joel, is he the future overall tight end one for Dynasty?
Overall one is a high bar, but I could see it. People have kind of downplayed. I think this is a great landing spot for him, right? He's going to be second banana, he's the clear second best receiver on this team, behind an alpha who's going to take coverage away. So yeah, I think this is a great spot. He's with quarterbacks who aren't necessarily great at pushing the ball downfield. Gardner Minshew is capable. That's the best thing I can say about him. Aiden O'Connell's terrible. Should not be starting for any team. So yeah, I think this is a great spot for Bowers. People were concerned about Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer's glorified Dawson Knox. I mean, he's not a fantasy viable option in my opinion. So yeah, I think this is a great spot for him. And yeah, I think Dynasty, if he had a Sam Laporta season, I would not be surprised in any way whatsoever.
That's going to be interesting just because with Laporta, it was all about touchdowns, right?
Sure.
And that's kind of the point here. We saw the touchdown spike with Jacoby Myers last year. Very different offense this year. But we've seen Luke Getsy target tight ends quite a bit. Cole Kmet had 13 touchdowns combined over the last 2 years. Bowers is clearly a very different tight end than Cole Kmet. But I'm with you. I definitely Ryan wrote about Bowers in our A Look Inside preview article this week over on clubfantasyffl.com. And that was kind of his large point. He was he's going through and doing this article. He's kind of slowly talking himself into Brock Bowers. And I've always been in on Bowers. Everybody, the moment that he landed in Las Vegas, it was oh my God, this landing spot is terrible. There's no way this is going to be a good fit, et cetera, et cetera. But really, when you look at how this offense is laid out, he could very easily be the number 2 target in this offense. And that's what you want from your tight ends. You want them to be a top 2 target. When you have a guy like Bowers who's coming in with all of the offensive accolades, he was, I think, the only 2-time John Mackey Award winner in college football, which is given to the best tight end. That's a high bar. That's what you want. So if you're drafting and, you're doing your dynasty drafts, where is Bowers then in your startups? Is he a top 3 guy? Is he a top 2 guy? The top guy? Because that certainly was not the case in our draft that we're doing a startup for.
No, I think he should go right around where Kyle Pitts goes. I think they're similar players. Probably similar situations with Kirk Cousins in Atlanta now. So, yeah, I would take him right around there. Kind of at the bottom of that top tier.
Okay. So he went tight end 5 at the 501 an hour. So pick 49. And then Kyle Pitts literally went the pick right after.
And this is a full point tight end premium league. So
yeah, correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So the only ones that went ahead, Laporta, Kincaid, McBride, and Mark Andrews. Do you think that's a fair placement?
I think that's right.
All right. I'm with it. All right. Next one I want to touch on, because you brought this up as kind of like a sneaky buy here. And when I mentioned in the intro about, I should have taken Rhamondre Stevenson a round earlier in our startup. Well, the guy that I took over Rhamondre was Zamir White. 25, the presumed lead back. We in or out on Zamir White? Do we think he has a clear path beyond this year to actually being a viable starting running back, not only in the NFL, but for our dynasty teams?
I do. He took over for Josh Jacobs last year under Antonio Pierce and did really well. He was a better per touch back than Jacobs was, and it basically wasn't even close. So I think Antonio Pierce obviously likes him quite a bit. They have not given him any real competition, right? They brought in Madison, who is what he is. He's a career backup. Never going to be anything more than that. Dylan Laub is a scat back at best. So they believe on him, right? He is going to be the bell cow. So this is what we want in our running backs is we want guys who are going to get the touches, going to get the snaps. I think White is that guy. And like, I liked him coming out of Georgia quite a bit. I drafted a ton of him and then kind of gave up on him after year one, which looks like a big mistake. But he did nothing in year one. But last year he was very good in the opportunities he was given. And like I said, he has the path to full bell cow workload. So I think there's a chance that he kind of maintains that role for the next couple of years.
So this is what I love in the comments, right? So Shopkey, Zamir solid, Gator, fake bell cow. So this is basically the opinion here on Zamir White, right? Like, are you in or are you out? And I think those are really the only two camps. I don't think there's much of a, all right, we're going to wait and see kind of thing. Like, I have a couple Zamir White shares. Most of them were simply from, I had Josh Jacobs, so I wanted to stack his backup, right? Well, that one league, I lost Jacobs to the Packers. And so now I've got two starting running backs now, right? Perfect. Awesome. Love that for me. And then you've got, like, in this startup where I took Zamir White basically as like a 0 RB, like he's my RB1 going into this season. Maybe it's going to work. Maybe it's not. It's going to suck if it doesn't, but I'm prepared. Like, he's going to get a good workload. And I think really the biggest question here, we know the carries are going to be there. Anytime you have a defensive head coach, they're going to want to run the ball. There are very few players in the NFL that have a clear path towards 220 plus carries. And I don't know how you can look at Zamir White and say in a perfectly healthy season, he's not going to hit that, because he should, right? How much pass catching work is he going to get? Because we all like to talk about that sample size from the end of the year when Josh Jacobs got hurt, and he really was not utilized in that role. They bring in Dylan Lobb, who, as you mentioned, scatback, has the pass catching upside. I brought up Brandon Bolden on several occasions. Yes, he's a special teamer, but when he's used on offense, that's how he's used, is as a pass catcher. Can Zamir White see 40 to 50 targets in this offense and really challenge to be like a top 15 running back? Because he showed he could do it at Georgia. Like, it wasn't something that was out of his repertoire. Like, he can do it.
I wouldn't expect it, but I wouldn't rule it out. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he hits. I would put his over under probably around 35 targets.
Okay. That's very Nick Chubb-esque. I get that.
Yeah, if he hit 40, I don't think this offense is going to be very conducive to running back checkdowns, just because I think Bowers is like Adams is kind of an intermediate guy, and Bowers is going to be an intermediate guy. I don't know how much check down there's going to be, because I think it's going to be a fairly condensed offense. But the path is there. That I could see him hitting like 40 or so, but I wouldn't expect it.
Okay. So our buddies over at South Harmon, Mike, shout out, says Zamir White's appropriately priced. Where do you have him kind of in your dynasty tiers, I guess we can call it? Like, I would have him number wise. That's hard to put it. He's a guy that I think has a chance to be more than just a this year kind of guy. I think he is, if he's going to have the role this year, he's going to have a chance to prove himself. And if he does, he's still got, year 4 of his rookie contract next year. So, when I'm looking at a dynasty running back is, can he give me anything more than this year? And I think Zamir White can. So I think he would be in that kind of tier of, like, I would take him in a startup probably ahead of Aaron Jones, just because I don't think he'll be as good as Aaron Jones on a per touch basis. But I think, if you kind of factor in how much time Aaron Jones is going to miss, and the fact that I don't expect much from Aaron Jones beyond this year, I would probably rather take the chance on Zamir White. Okay. That lines up in this startup that we're in the middle of. Zamir White went roughly 3 rounds ahead of Aaron Jones. So I dig that. All right. I want to highlight this comment here from Darcy. So in a league where she's got no running back, she traded 2 future seconds for Zamir. Everyone was charging a premium to get any of my target. 100%. I think that's fine. I'm kind of one of those people that when it comes to Zamir White and really any of these kind of like starting-esque running backs that maybe we don't know a ton of, like a second, 2 seconds, like that's kind of the value that I would place on them, right? Like, you know, I had somebody approach me in it's a super deep dynasty league. It's like 40 roster spots. They were offering me like a second and a third for Rhamondre Stevenson, but we start like 11 or 12 in this league. So like for someone like that in a normal size league, a second and a third for Rhamondre, this was before the contract extension. I didn't think that was an unfair price, but I think when you start extrapolating it out and you see how large the league size is, how large the the starting rosters are, you kind of want that at least late first value when it comes to somebody like that. But I think for somebody that's largely unproven, for Zamir White, two future twos, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit dependent on the league settings, how deep the league is, how many starters you have, stuff like that. But in a vacuum, I'd say that's perfectly fine. Like that's what you want to be. If you're a contender and you need a running back, that's what you want to be doing with your future seconds, is getting someone who can come in and like has the upside to kind of step above the value of the 2 seconds that you're trading away. Yeah. So yeah, I like that deal quite a bit.
So Gator just drinking the haterade this morning. 104 rush attempts, 19 targets last year. So I want to bring this up simply because we've seen this literally in this Raiders offense for years now. Josh Jacobs is the bell cow. Like he had 360 rush attempts 2 years ago. The rest of the team had like 30. So if you told me that Zamir White had 104 rush attempts last year, it's because he started 4 games.
Yep.
That's not bad. That's almost 25 carries a game. I'll take that. The 160 max in college is fine. Like this is what happens with Georgia running backs. There's so many good ones there. They rotate them out.
19 targets and basically 4 starts. So yeah, that tracks. So you extrapolate that. It's probably, obviously you got some of that before those 4 starts, but 3.5, 4 a game, that puts you up around 45 ish.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll take that.
That shows that there's some pass catching upside there.
I agree. All right. And the last one, kind of want to run through this somewhat quickly. Davante Adams. Yes, he's 32, third year of a 5-year deal. Really hasn't slowed down. Maybe the production has dipped a little, but I feel like that's largely on quarterback play, right? Luke Getsy hyper-targeted DJ Moore last year because they didn't have very many other good weapons. Well, kind of in a similar situation here in Las Vegas. What do we see for Adams this year? And being that he's going to be 33 next year, is he on his way towards his Larry Fitzgerald years? Or is this just it? This is it for this year?
I don't know why you would think that. I think Fitzgerald's a pretty good comp because Adams has not slowed down in any way whatsoever. I mean, going back 5-6 years ago, since he had any like real significant injury concerns, missed any real time. The consistency has dipped a little bit, but like you said, I think that's because he had Aiden O'Connell throwing him the ball last year, and that was just Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, that was just a terrible quarterback room. Garoppolo was awful last year, and Aiden O'Connell wasn't much better. So there's people who kind of think he's a sneaky buy and might win that job. I don't think there's any way in the world that happens. He was terrible. So yeah, I think if you get a little bit more consistency out of Gardner Minshew, I don't see any reason he's not a top 10 receiver this year.
Yeah, when I did my projections, I currently have him at wide receiver 13. That's roughly his price right now in best ball, and I think that is about right. Like it's not because I don't think that Adams isn't still a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, because I firmly believe that he is. Like his route running is just so good. And if he starts getting more snaps in the slot, like look out, it's lights out time. But yeah, the biggest detriment here is just going to be quarterback play. And, we love Gardner Minshew here at Club Fantasy. He's so much fun to talk about and he's fun to watch play, but man, he throws way too many hospital balls. And I really do worry about Davante Adams. I'm not going to lie. And if you told me that Jacoby Myers only plays 6 games this year, it's probably because Gardner Minshew left him out to dry, and he's already got a history of concussion. So that does worry me quite a bit. But yeah, no. So let me ask you this then: with Davante Adams, what would be your sell price? right? Like if you were looking to buy him and or if you were looking to sell him, what would be the lowest price that you would take for him? Because I did actually sell Adams in one league this offseason. So I'm curious to hear what you would would be the max that you would get for him or settle for, I guess.
I think he's a guy that I would be content holding on to and waiting. Like, I'm not going to take less than a first because I think I can, if I'm a non-contender, I can hold on to him and sell him for a first, around at the trade deadline or whatever. Because I don't, there's no reason to think that he's going to, this isn't like Julio Jones where he's had a history of like lower leg injuries and, he can't practice and stuff like that. This guy just keeps going. He keeps playing 17 games a year. So there's no reason to expect him to get hurt. There's no recent injury history. So he's a guy I'm comfortable gambling that he can make it through to the trade deadline, and I can get the equivalent value of a first for. So I'm not selling for anything less than that.
Okay. Yeah. So in this one, it was an orphan that I took over. Super aging team, a lot of veterans, a lot of older veterans, and really the one good piece I have is CD Lamb, and I just want to hold on to that because he's the only good piece I have. So I'm just trying to like get rid of everybody that I can. And I ended up selling Adams for, I think, what came out to be the 110 in this rookie draft. It was I think it's a one quarterback. I think that's that deep league no. Sorry. It's a Superflex 12 team. It's about 28 to 30 roster spots. So it is a little bit deeper. But I felt like the 110, 111 price that I got, not the worst thing in the world. So
yeah, if you're getting a first, I'm fine with that because you're not going to get that. That's tough to get in the offseason, right? For a guy like Adams because he's going to turn 32.
Yeah, I couldn't sell Stephon Diggs to save my life, but at least I got that for Adams. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's a fair price. If you can get a first, that you're doing well on the sell side.
Cool. All right, moving on. Next team, the New Orleans Saints. This team, man, you want to talk about mediocrity and just being content with mediocrity. Good Lord. Mickey Loomis, 23rd season and has all of one championship to show for it. Get this man out of here. My Lord. Dennis Allen, 3rd year as a head coach. He's probably a lame duck coach too. Play caller, first year for in New Orleans here with Clint Kubiak. He was last seen calling plays in Minnesota back in 2021, I believe. Spent last season in San Francisco as the pass game coordinator under Kyle Shanahan. So definitely going to be some new wrinkles coming to this offense. If you look at what he did in Minnesota, kind of think you got to have really high hopes for Chris Olave. But if you look at what Kyle Shanahan's done in San Francisco, maybe you look and see, holy shit, Alvin Kamara season, baby. Like, let's fucking go, right? It's going to be this tale of two Clint Kubiaks here. It's going to be interesting. But let's break it all down. We got a quarterback room here. Derek Carr, 33, is in the second year of a 4-year, $150 million contract. Has roughly about $22 million in dead cap over the next few seasons. They, of course, spent a 5th-round pick on Spencer Rattler. And for the life of me, Joel, I don't know why you put Taysom Hill as a quarterback when we know he's anything but. He is 33, though. The running back
listed
room,
as that on the official roster.
Not on sleep. Well, he is kind of on sleeper, but anyway. Alvin Kamara leads the running back room. He's 29. Holding out currently because he has no guaranteed money after 2024, but he is signed through next season. They, of course, spent I think it was a 3rd-round pick last year on Kendre Miller. He's 22 heading into his second season. And then the dead weight that is Jamal Williams, although we love him for his press conferences. The receivers, yes, the aforementioned Chris Olave heading into season 3 here, 24 years old. This really after him, man. Holy goodness, it is a bad wide receiver room. We do love Rashid Shaheed. He's 26 heading into his 3rd season, very electric with the ball in his hands. The love child of one Ryan Weiss, A.T. Perry, 25 heading into his 2nd season. Juwan Johnson, 28. Is this really his 5th season? Feels like he's been in the league a lot longer than that. Converted wide receiver into tight end. Yeah, not a lot to love outside of Chris Olave. But you know what? Let's start with the running backs here. Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller. Where to start here? Seriously. Alvin Kamara feels like a very special case when it comes to running backs because he is 29 years old. But I feel like when you look at, and we talked about this on Wednesday's flagship, no pun intended, Alvin Kamara's receiving numbers, and he came into the league at the same time as Christian McCaffrey, they're damn near identical. And there's a lot of McCaffrey might have more receiving yards. The advanced metrics lean a lot more towards Alvin Kamara. If he's able to work out an extension, how much longer do you think he can go? I mean, that's the simple question, right? Like, he's 29 years old. That's like dead weight at running back.
I don't expect him to be with the team next year. I think they'll work out a deal where they just give him a little bit extra money and he'll come back because he's not going anywhere. I don't think he has any trade market, especially given the off-field concerns or the off-field concern from a couple of years ago. So I can't imagine unless Jerry Jones wants to sink a bunch of money into him, but I don't really think that's a likely outcome. So I don't think he'll be with the team next year. He's probably a backup kind of pass game specialist for somebody else next year. So I think this is his last year of kind of being a focus of the offense. I'm not going to say he's a bell cow because I think he's going to split that role with Kendre Miller. I think we're kind of looking at the second coming of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara.
Well, that's what it needs to be because when Kamara has over 200 carries, it's not great. Like his efficiency the last 2 years, it's been like 3.7, 4.0, and 3.9 yards per carry. Like he's not an effective runner when he has that much workload. He needs to have it split. Focus him on the passing game. His contact balance is arguably the best of any running back in the league. Like it is nasty with the ball in his hands. If Kendre Miller can take that step forward, that's going to be not only the best thing for Kamara, but the best thing for the Saints offense.
Yeah, and Miller at TCU was, kind of that two-down, kind of Nick Chubb type that we talked about with Zamir White. He's, basically a two-down between the tackles kind of runner, which really sets up Kamara to be the third down back, the pass-catching specialist, the hurry-up back. So that's like it's an alignment I like quite a bit. Like I teased this on Twitter before. I think this offense is my complete under-the-radar splashy offense of 2024. I think this could be a much, much better offense than people expect it to be. Like right now, everybody, I think Gator put in this, or somebody put in there that they were going to be back to or Dave Mobord said back to the Aints. I think this defense could be pretty bad. Like it's really long in the tooth. Either Marshawn Lattimore, Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Jordan. They're relying on a lot of guys who are well into their 30s. If this is like we talked about with Minnesota last week, I think this could be an offense that has to get into a lot of shootouts. And I really like, I love going from Pete Carmichael to Clint Kubiak because that's such a massive upgrade at offensive coordinator. Like Pete Carmichael was a third rate Sean Payton knockoff. Yeah. And they had the lowest rate of offensive snaps with receivers in motion last year. Where you're going to go to Kubiak.
That's impressive considering Brian Johnson in Philadelphia was dog shit when it came to motion.
So now you're going to Kubiak coming from the Shanahan scheme where they get receivers in motion more than anyone. You've got Chris Olave, who we'll talk about, who's like the platonic ideal of a Z receiver. He should be in motion literally on 85% of his snaps. Like it should be happening all the time. Plus you get Derek Carr in his second season with the team. The first season can always be kind of tough when you're switching teams. So yeah, I think this offense is poised to really kind of take off and surprise people. So yeah, I like Miller. I like as a dynasty asset. I think Kamara's a sell because I think he will be good this year, but I don't know what the future holds. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of volume, right? He's going to have to rely on efficiency this year. So I'm okay with moving him, but I like Kendre Miller a lot. I think he's someone he could be like the touchdown vulture. Hopefully Taysom Hill doesn't take all those touchdowns away, but
fuck that guy.
Yeah. I think Kendre Miller, we talked about it earlier. I think he could kind of reprise that Mark Ingram role. So yeah, I like this running back room quite a bit.
Yeah, Miller's rookie season felt kind of lost. Obviously, the injuries didn't help any, but it just kind of felt like they were trying to extract every little bit of value they could out of that wasted Jamal Williams contract. And
and Miller, like, he got hurt. He was coming off the injury in the playoffs, in the college football playoffs the year before, the December before. And then it got hurt again at the beginning of training camp. So he never really got his feet underneath him. So I think this is a real chance for him to kind of bounce back, show what he can do, and kind of step into that role.
Good. I'm all about it. And for Dynasty, for me, like when it comes to Kamara, like if I'm a contender, I'm just holding. Like if you can sit here and tell me he's going to average 13 targets a game like he did last year, I'll take it. And yes, I'm being somewhat facetious, but he made his living on targets last year. That receiving work was absolutely fantastic. You keep bringing that to the table, give me all of it. All right, let's talk about the wide receiver room. So Chris Olave, as you mentioned, like he's set up for a massive third-year breakout, and he's gotten progressively better each of his first two seasons. And I mean, putting up over 1,000 yards, over 1,100 yards last year in really suspect offenses, to be perfectly honest. The problem is, though, he doesn't have a ton of support, right? There's not a lot around him. Rashid Shaheed, mainly a deep threat, but when he has the ball in his hands, extremely electric. A.T. Perry, I don't know, maybe he's like Marquez Colston light. Maybe big, tall guy, can catch in the red zone. Be the tight end that they haven't had in years. I don't know. Juwan Johnson, we've been waiting for this breakout, currently dealing with a foot injury. Talk to me about this wide receiver room. And sure, let's focus on Chris Olave. First off, do you think anybody might be out on him after kind of, we'll say, somewhat disappointing first 2 years, like kind of trending towards that Terry McLaurin level of disappointment?
I think he's kind of like Garrett Wilson in that people had really high hopes for him after year one, and then year two, development is not linear, right? So they didn't just kind of take off exponentially like people expected after that, kind of really good rookie seasons. They kind of took a relative step back. But yeah, I think that was more of, like you said, that was more of a function of the offense he was in, and the same thing for Garrett Wilson, having to deal with Zach Wilson. Yeah, I think these guys are both guys who are going to take big steps forward. I love Chris Olave this year. I think he's going to be the focus of that offense. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be put in much better positions to succeed, like we said, with Kubiak than he was with Pete Carmichael. That was just a disaster situation. I think he kind of takes that step this year that we expected him to take last year. I don't know that anybody's really out on him. I think I've tried to make trades for him and in a lot of my leagues, and like nobody's selling at a discount. So you're not getting him cheaply by any means. I don't think anybody's out on him. I think everybody's kind of holding. I'm in full buy mode. I have kind of bought him in a few places where I wouldn't say overpaid, but I paid full price, and I'm okay doing that because I think the real breakout is coming this year.
So what's full
I
price?
want parts of this offense.
What's full price?
In one league, I paid the 107 and the 207 for him.
Okay. So
it's a non-tight end premium. So I'm basically giving up, Bowers and a non-tight end premium or something like that, plus the 207. So obviously ranking him ahead of like the Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey, whoever's going in that 107 and a non-tight end premium range. Probably right behind Odunze. Like I would much rather have him than Odunze, but I think that's what you got to pay is kind of a mid-round first plus to get him. So, and I'm doing that all over. I just haven't gotten much action at that price.
Makes sense. All right, Gator brings up until they get a real quarterback. Olave is a buy low guy, maybe a best ball guy, but not at cost.
All right, let's talk Derek Carr. He got hurt in game 3 against the Packers, separated his shoulder.
Moving right along, then.
Next 2 games were pretty bad, admittedly, but he was hurt. Had another game against Minnesota where he had to leave when he was having a pretty good game and had to leave because he got hurt. You take away those injury games, and he was really good Like he was like people give him a bad rap. He was not bad. He was second in the league in 300-yard passing games, had a 67% completion percentage. I think he was 25-8 touchdown to interception ratio. He was not bad last year in any capacity. Like there's no way you can look at him and say he was a bad quarterback. Like he had a couple of games where he was injured that didn't play well, but when you consider that, I think this offense is going to take a massive step forward with the difference changing coordinator, and he's in his second year in New Orleans, so he's a bit more comfortable. It's going to be a different system, but he's more comfortable with the players he's playing with. Doesn't have Jameis Winston kind of breathing down his neck, even though I never thought that was a real threat.
No, he's got Spencer Rattler breathing down his neck now.
Spencer Rattler's a threat to no one. Maybe Aiden O'Connell for the backup job in Las Vegas, but I'm trying to buy low on Derek Carr everywhere possible. And I just traded yesterday. I made a trade, gave up the 202 for Carr and the 302 in a Superflex. I'm doing that all day long.
I would take that. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to buy Carr. I think he's going way too late in best ball. He's 33, so he's kind of older than people think. But in Dynasty, we talked about that. He's got another $20 million plus dead cap hit next year. I expect him to be the quarterback there for the next 2 years. So he's going to have Olave for obviously those 2 years. I do like Shaheed quite a bit more than the market. So yeah, I think Derek Carr is really. I could see him being a top 10, top 12 quarterback this year.
That's lofty, considering only once in his 10-year career has he ever been a top 10 quarterback.
No.
He's basically the definition of a quarterback too. 9 out of 10 years he's finished between QB 13 and QB 20. And you think at 33 he's going to be a top 10 quarterback?
I think he could. I think this entire offense is underrated. I think Carr's underrated. You don't have to pay top 12 quarterback price for him, right? What's top 12 quarterback right now? Like something in the Jaden Daniels range? Like that's 102, 103. So, I mean, that's probably your dynasty quarterback 12, something like that. So you don't have to pay anything close to that kind of price for him. Like I just paid the 202 for him. And in a league that I really don't even need a quarterback, right? I've got Richardson, Stroud, and Love in that league. So I don't really need a quarterback. But I'd rather have him on my bench than somebody else's. So if you need a quarterback and don't want to have to pay sticker price for a top quarterback, that's kind of the under the radar guy that I'm targeting heavily.
Okay. Gator brings up Carr's on the Russell Wilson path, but a worse player.
All right. Bring it on, haters. Bring it on. Gator does rhyme with haters, so.
All right, let's move into the Indianapolis Colts. Chris Ballard, 8th season as the GM. Shane Steichen, 2nd year as both the head coach and the play caller. And let me tell you, Philadelphia sorely missed Shane Steichen last year. Oh, miss my guy. All right, starting quarterback, Anthony Richardson, 23, heading into 2nd season, only with very small handful of starts last year before suffering a shoulder injury. Then, of course, the true ageless wonder, Mr. Joe Flacco, coming in as the backup to Anthony Richardson, which really to me makes zero sense because him and Richardson are two completely different types of players. Starting running back, Jonathan Taylor, and a whole lot of nothing behind him. Trey Sermon, Evan Hall, I believe, are the two backups. Wide receivers here, Michael Pittman recently signed a 3-year extension. 27 heading into year 5. They drafted Josh Downs in the 3rd round last year out of North Carolina. He's 23 heading into his 2nd season. The rookie out of Texas by way of Georgia, Adonai Mitchell, 21 rookie year. And Jelani Woods, probably one of the largest what-ifs in the NFL because everybody was high on the talent, and he's done little nothing since because he ain't been healthy. I think he only played 2 games last year. 26 heading into his 3rd season, and a whole slew of other tight ends behind him. Will Mallory, Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox. I don't know what you want to make of that tight end room, but Let's just get it out of the way. Let's start with the guy that some people are taking as it feels like the QB1 in Dynasty right now, because it's him and CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson. When it comes to redraft, his price is just way, way, way too high. It's going as like QB5. I've seen some people have him as the QB1 in 2024. Field Yates at ESPN has him as the QB3. That to me is his ceiling, not where he should be going. So let's flip it from a dynasty perspective, right? Joel, where is Anthony Richardson for you when it comes to dynasty, literally based on 4 games last year?
Yeah, so we talked about him quite a bit on the show. When I was doing my tiers earlier in the season, I had him outside of tier 2 just because of the question marks, right? He only played 4 games last year, and he left 2 of them early. He didn't really answer the questions we had coming out of Florida. Can he throw the ball effectively at the NFL level? We knew he was going to be, kind of lights out on the ground. That was never in question. But can he run an offense? Can he throw the ball effectively? Can he, get the ball to his receivers? Those questions he can answer because he didn't play. But when he did play, he was spectacular for fantasy, even if he wasn't necessarily great as a quarterback. So there is the guy literally has the talent, the ability to be the dynasty QB1. I don't think there's any question about that, right? So, but how confident are you that he ever hits that ceiling, if at all? Again, coming out of the NFL draft last year, I said he was my QB1 in that class just because whoever went with Steichen was the guy I wanted, and he was the one who went there. Stroud obviously kind of made that look silly, at least for year 1, but Stroud does not have Stroud's ceiling is, and I don't mean to sound pejoratively, but his ceiling is like Joe Burrow, right? He's not going to run at this level. He's never going to kind of ascend to that top tier of fantasy quarterback just because he's not going to run the ball. He's just not going to, it's not going to be part of his game. Where Richardson does still possess that ability, and probably, we've seen Justin Fields be a top 10 quarterback, and is Anthony Richardson any worse than Fields? I don't think so. He's probably a better.
But look at that. Look at the last couple of years where quarterbacks have gotten injured at such a high rate. When you break it all down to points per game, Justin Fields' top 10 season was the biggest anomaly I've ever seen in my life. Seriously.
That's true, but Fields has never played with Shane Steichen either. So if there's anyone,
and he never will because he ain't good.
That's true. But if there's anyone I trust to get that, to get that top tier passer level out of a quarterback, it's Steichen, because he's done it with Herbert. He's done it with Jalen Hurts. I still think there's that path for Richardson. So I'm still optimistic. Would I take him as a top 3 quarterback this year? No, absolutely not. But there's always that outcome where he, if you get in too late, it may be too late. He's just never available after that. If he has a massive season this year, he's never going to be available again.
Oh, fuck no. It's the same reason. He's going to be in that Josh Allen, and I use this loosely, that Jalen Hurts tier, but even Jalen Hurts is starting to fall out of people's good graces, and I really don't understand why. It's baffling to me, because to me, it's Hurts and it's Allen. Those are your top 2 guys in Dynasty. You're not going to find quarterbacks that can throw for 3,300 yards, 20-plus touchdowns, and contribute over 600 rushing and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Those are literally the only 2 guys. Anthony Richardson, well, I'll put Lamar Jackson in that conversation. But he's not near as proficient as a passer when it comes to yards as those 2 guys have shown the last few years. But that's another conversation.
That's more of a function of the offense that he's
correct. 100%. Anthony Richardson, I fully agree. That is his ceiling. That's his ceiling. It's that tier, right? He can be the QB1 when he hits 4,000 yards, the way that Josh Allen does every year. I don't know that is Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson's ceiling to me is Jalen Hurts, and that's QB2. So I think for me, kind of putting him in that Josh Allen tier is a little out there. I'm fine, with the safer guys like the Mahomes, the Strouds, the Burrows, Jacksons. Still putting Herbert in that conversation, even though we haven't seen him in this new offense yet. But
Jordan Love,
another great example. And I think he could be even better than he was last year, because he had about a 6-week stretch in the middle of the season where he did not look great, and it was killing one of my dynasty teams. Luckily, he picked it up and I won that championship. That's all that matters. But yeah, like the Richardson hype, I'm with you 100%. People definitely aren't going to be selling low this year, and if he hits that ceiling this year, yeah, it's all bets are off. Like it's going to take 14 first-round picks to get him from some team. So,
and if you look at Josh Allen just as a comp, who was a very similar prospect coming out of college, right? The accuracy was a concern. Knew he had the arm and the rushing ability, but can he run an offense? Can he throw accurately? First year was pretty bad. Second year made a step forward, made the playoffs.
He's the third-year lead
coming. Third year he exploded, and he's off the table. You're never buying him again. He's never going to be available again. So I think
guess who also had that third-year lead? Jalen Hurts. So why are we saying that AR is going to hit it in year 2? This is what baffles me. He is a third-year guy.
But again, the problem is if it does happen this year, you're never getting him again. You never have a chance to buy him again.
If he stays healthy, you will see progress. Like I'm not debating that fact. It's the it's the redraft people that are like, oh, he's going to be QB3 this year. I'm like, no, he's not. That is stupid. That is asinine thinking. Stupid. I'm all in on Anthony Richardson in Dynasty. I want nothing to do with him in redraft this year. Nothing. But let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go over to the running back room. Jonathan Taylor's been hurt the last couple of years. It's been a bit of a rough ride. But after his second year in the league, we were talking about this guy as the Dynasty RB1. And this is how Dynasty works when it comes to running backs, right? Like you have the ebbs, you have the flows. 1 week, you're the RB1. The next week, you're the RB12. That's how quickly it changes. We've seen JT's price in redraft creep up to about the RB4 behind McCaffrey, Bijan, Breece Hall. When it comes to Dynasty, are you putting JT in that tier 1, or is he still a tier 2 guy for you?
He's a tier 2 guy for me just because he's much older. Like he's still only 25. This is his 5th season, but he's only 25. But when you compare him to Breece Hall and Bijan, who are 22 still, that gap is going to make his dynasty value, his trade value, his market value significantly low. I think he's probably behind Zamir Gibbs as well in dynasty value, just because of the age difference. So no, I wouldn't put him. I don't trust him as much as McCaffrey. He doesn't have that kind of bad. I don't know that he has the upside to kind of have the kind of season that McCaffrey did last year. So yeah, I wouldn't have him in tier 1, but I would have him at the top of tier 2. Like you talked about it, they got Trey Sermon and Evan Hull behind him. They obviously trust that he's going to be able to kind of carry a heavy workload this year.
Yeah, I mean they gave him his money last year. I mean, and that was coming off of an injured season. But like we've seen Jonathan Taylor be the RB1 in fantasy. I mean, over 1,800 yards, 18 plus touchdowns, I believe. But I guess at this point, 3 years ago. We know he's capable as a pass catcher. It's just not going to be in the cards for him because A, quarterbacks that tend to run a lot don't target their running backs often, and B, throwing to running backs really hasn't been a staple of a Shane Steichen offense. So I think really your ceiling for targets here with JT is probably in that 35 to 45 range, which again, I mean, if he's putting up 1,500 plus rushing yards, that's perfectly fine. Like give us that. And, maybe he brings in 250 receiving yards on top of that, but he needs the 1,500 plus rushing yards and give or take 15 touchdowns total, right? That's a high bar to set when you're talking about a tier 1 dynasty value that, you need that pass catching upside. All those other guys we talked about, CMC, Bijan, Breece Hall, Zamir Gibbs, they all have that. JT doesn't really bring that to the table. To me, he's the next Derrick Henry when it comes to dynasty value, right? Like he's the guy that's going to keep being that sort of like, middle of the road RB1, potentially those pop seasons as like a 2 or 3 based on injuries if he stays healthy. But he's never going to be that consistent 1 because of the lack of pass catching volume.
Yeah, and if he could stay as healthy as Derrick Henry has during his career, that would obviously be a huge boon for his career. But yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, obviously being a Badger fan, I'm a huge fan. I saw literally every snap he played in college, and I cannot count the number of times I said this kid is special. So I think he could be better than kind of peak Nick Chubb. That outcome, if he can stay healthy, that's the kind of ceiling he has, even without a high volume of receptions. And he's going to be in an offense where they're going to run, like we talked about Derrick Henry in this Baltimore offense, where you run around RPOs with Lamar Jackson. Now that could really kind of be a boon for his late career. Jonathan Taylor's going to be in pretty much a similar situation with Anthony Richardson. So yeah, I could, like you said, that 1,500-yard double-digit touchdown season, I think that's certainly in play if he can kind of stay healthy for the full season.
100%. All right, let's switch gears to the wide receiver room. I don't want to get too much into Michael Pittman because we've got a different segment for him. But with Anthony Richardson still developing as a passer, and this offense not likely to be a very high volume passing attack, because a lot of people like to forget this, Anthony Richardson did not even average 22 pass attempts per game last year. That is not great. Is there room for a wide receiver 2 in this offense? Maybe not this year, but next year and beyond. And if so, who's your guy between Adonai Mitchell, the rookie, or Josh Downs, the second-year player?
I'm going to split the question and say for this year it's Downs. For the future, I think it's Mitchell.
Okay.
I think Downs has got familiarity in the offense, even though obviously Richardson only played basically the equivalent of 10 halves. He played 2 full games and left kind of 2 games and around the end of the first half. So, but I think there's a bit of familiarity that Mitchell doesn't have. I do think Mitchell kind of matches up well with Richardson. The one thing Richardson does is the deep ball that he does well is the deep ball. I think Mitchell is the best kind of option that they have on the team to kind of fill that role. But yeah, that's not going to be a very high efficiency. I mean, he may score a lot of fantasy points doing that role, but I don't know if there's going to be enough volume.
All coming in 3 games, so
exactly, yeah. Your best case is kind of a better. I hate to compare him to Marquez Valdes-Scantling because MVS is such a terrible player, but that kind of role, that kind of deep threat, 3-4 targets a game max, to where you're kind of best case out. You're 2 for 70 and 2 touchdowns, or 4 for 70 and 2 touchdowns, or something like that. That's the kind of game you're looking for. So, yeah, I don't see a volume role for Mitchell at all, but I think Downs could have a bit of volume role. So for this year, I think it's definitely Downs, and then we'll kind of TBD on Mitchell to see what his role ends up being.
Yeah, I find it really interesting because obviously, the big comps you want to see is, how can Philly replicate, how can Indy replicate what Phillies did the last couple of years with within, the Steichen system. And, it was a pass funnel offense. Like it went to the wide receiver 1, AJ Brown. It went to the wide receiver 2, Devonta Smith. And then the third target being Dallas Goedert. This team doesn't really have a tight end to target. So in theory, all 3 of these wide receivers could ultimately be really good for fantasy, right? It all just boils down to who's going to take the cake. Obviously, they paid Michael Pittman. He's going to be the quote-unquote A.J. Brown in this offense. He's going to be the high target guy. Who then takes that Devonta Smith role? Is it A.D. Mitchell? Is it Josh Downs? And that's why I wanted to pose this question this way. I like your answer with it being Downs this year, maybe for future years it's A.D. Mitchell, just because they have 2 very different skill sets, right? Downs is more of a slot guy. He's going to be sort of that intermediate. Mitchell can get down the field. He can utilize his speed. I mean, a good comp for me, and I know maybe this is just kind of tired and everybody uses it, but AD Mitchell's basically George Pickens to me. Same head case and everything. So, and I don't know, like, people are excited because of the talent of George Pickens, but look how inconsistent he is. That's AD Mitchell, right? I feel like he's just more like a dynasty best ball guy at that point.
I think it's a good comp, but I think I like Pickens much better as a player. But for the role, I think that's a good comp, and that's like Pickens is the exact kind of player we described for AD Mitchell. It's a better version of MVS. So a guy who can get downfield, can win contested catches. If his head's screwed on right, like I hate. Again, I don't want to use that pejoratively because the diabetic thing is a concern, and that may have a lot to do with it. Obviously, he's got the support of the team. Chris Ballard basically spent an entire press conference talking about what a good person he is. So hopefully, he's got that support system in place that can kind of elevate him above where he was at Texas, because obviously his demeanor, his attitude wasn't up to an NFL level at Texas, and that's got to get fixed.
100%. All right. That's going to bring us to the final segment here. But before we get into that, I just want to remind everybody with our partnership with Dynasty Nerds. Head over to dynastynerds.com. Use promo code CLUBFANTASY at checkout. Save 15%. Get all access to all of their great Dynasty tools, including their trade calculator, film room, rankings, you name it. Great site, great people that run it. DynastyNerds.com. Use promo code CLUBFANTASY. Save yourself 15% at checkout. All right, Joel. We've talked a lot about all these different players, 3 different teams, Raiders, Saints, the Colts. I want your biggest sells. Okay, because we talked a lot about buys and blah, 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 the people we like. Who are you selling?
We'll start with the Raiders. I'm selling Jacoby Myers because I think Bowers is going to take that role of the receiver 2 in that offense. And I don't know that Myers is good enough to kind of command targets with 2 other kind of alphas in the offense. So I would sell on him while his value is still high. For the Saints, it's Kamara, just because I think he's a 1-year guy and that's it. So if you're a contender and can move him for a fair price, I think that's a good idea, just because I don't see any value beyond this year. And then for the Colts, it's Pittman, just because I think he's getting a lot of targets. He's getting a lot of volume, but I don't know. He's getting a lot of volume relative to the rest of that offense, but I don't. Is he a high touchdown guy? Where
he should be.
I'm just.
I mean, really, who else in that offense is going to be like catching touchdowns?
I'm afraid it's all Anthony Richardson running him in and Taylor. So therein lies my point with Richardson. That if you think all he's going to do is run him in, he's not throwing 20 touchdowns. That's entirely possible. Yeah. Like I think Pittman's on a path to become the next Terry McLaurin, where he's good, but he's never going to be great. So I think if you can sell him at the expectation that he's got great within him, you should probably do that.
All right. I can respect that. Okay. All right. That about wraps it up. Joel, good show, buddy.
Yeah, good stuff. 3 teams I like a lot coming in, or I don't necessarily like the Raiders as a team, but I think Adams and Bowers can be really good kind of alphas in their offense. I like you said, I love New Orleans this year. I think they're super under the radar. Could be really productive, especially they're in a terrible division. I think the defense is going to be bad. I think they can play in a lot of shootouts. So I think they're going to put a lot of fantasy points. And the Colts are super interesting. How does this play out? Love the coach, love the offense, but we'll see how the pieces fit together.
I like it. All right. If you're still with us and you're watching over on YouTube, be sure to like the video, hit subscribe on the channel. Costs you nothing. 2 extra clicks. Does a lot to support us. We recently crossed 1,000 subscribers. We're well on our way to 2,000. So can't do that without you guys. So hit that like, hit that subscribe. Show us all the love and support, because I promise we will reciprocate. Dynasty After Party, man. 50 episodes, Joel. Congratulations, man.
Thanks. Very excited to hit that number. That's awesome.
Yeah, you'll be seeing a little bit more of me over the coming weeks. Scully's got a lot going on, and I'm trying to help him out and kind of get him back on track. But you can, of course, follow Joel at the Joel Wirth over on Twitter, myself at the One Hudsonian. Most importantly, follow Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We post on every single one of them, and we post very frequently. God, we got 9 shows now. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, Dynasty After Party here every Sunday at 11 a.m. Monday nights, Mocking with the Stars with our boy Gator J, Chris Battistell. Tuesday nights, we have Masterclass, one of our best ball shows. That is with Gator J and Stacy Perez. Typically at 8:30. Every once in a while, they do special times at 7:30 and or 9:30, just kind of depending on the draft itself. Wednesday mornings, we have Who's Your Caddy? It's our golf DFS show with Kelly Singh and Adam Hallis. Of course, Wednesday nights, it's our flagship show, No Punt Intended. We're continuing a look inside this week, and we're bringing on Chris Allen from Fantasy Life. We'll be touching on the Seahawks, the Jaguars, and, of course, Chris's Bengals. Thursdays, we have not one but 2 shows. Our brand new Dynasty Trade Show, Trade Blocked, with Mr. Joel Wirth. That includes Dusty Lunt from our good friends over at Drinking and Talking Fantasy, and one of our newest contributors, HoovTube, Mr. Hoove himself. Love that kid. So much energy. A lot of fun. And our Women of Fantasy Football mock draft show, Mock Girl Summer, with Wendy Early, Julia Papworth. They will be doing another Scott Fishbowl draft this week with the lovely Kendall Valenzuela from Fantasy Life. And hopefully, crossing fingers, another best ball show, Summer School with Austin and Matt Record, should be coming back on Friday morning. Crossing fingers. Should be coming back. But that is going to be more strategy driven. And those strategies we can use on Masterclass when they do the live draft. So it's always fun. And of course, Saturday mornings, Mock It Like It's Hot with Ryan Weiss and Austin Amendolia. I believe next week they're going to be doing a Raz Bowl draft. So that they covered Scott Fish Bowl this past week. They covered the Rainbow Bowl the week before. So this week we're diving into Raz Bowl. And Scampers, how do people get into the SFB mocks? Well, I'm going to need you to hit up Mr. Gator J on Twitter. That's FantasyJ77. We have a sleeper mock draft group chat that we have, and we drop all of our links into that chat. You can invite everybody if you just drop your sleeper handle here in the chat, or you can hit up Jay on Twitter. We can include you into that, and that way you see each and every single one of those mocks that we do.
And they are firing that question. Like, they fire mocks in that group chat all the time.
All the time. Like, there's every mock that you can possibly imagine. So, but with that, that's Joel. I'm Josh. Club Fantasy. This is Dynasty After Party. Always remember, Dynasty is like a disco ball. It keeps spinning 365. So join the after party here every Sunday morning. Peace out, Joe.